was in later meets. So what type of BYU team do you expect today in their final home meet?
You know, the last couple meets we've seen some big improvements, a lot of consistency. So I'm hoping and expecting to see some good gymnastics tonight from BYU.
BYU, per the norm, will open up on vault, as they do in every home meet. The Seawolves will begin on the uneven bars. BYU, the number 38 team in the country on vault. Alaska counters as the number 69 team on uneven bars. The Seawolves coming off a 192.50 in an away meet against Iowa State on Sunday, February 19th. Iowa State, of note, in the Big 12 Conference will be BYU's conference foe as of next year as the Cougars move into a Power 5 scenario and take on the Big 12 Conference.
Yeah, we're going to be seeing some different competitors for BYU. It's going to be really exciting. With gymnastics, it doesn't necessarily matter who you're competing against because you're looking for a score versus wins and losses, but it will be very exciting to see some new faces.
Well, yeah, we'll see those adjusted lineups from head coach Gard Young, now in his 8th season, has made BYU really, for the most part, a consistent top 25 program. Right now, just below that. But again, this team feels like they are top 25 caliber and hoping to put together that type of score today. BYU's coming off a 196.450 in a home win against Mountain Rim Gymnastics Conference rival Utah State. BYU will then head out after today's meet for an away meet against Ohio State and then an interesting meet with the Pac-12 foe in Arizona before the MRGC Championships are slated for Saturday, March 18th. Only 3 meets to go. What is fixable at this point for BYU, Mikkel? Because at this juncture, you kind of are who you are.
Right. What we're looking for are the hit sets. Not every meet. That's not true. The meets that we have seen low scores, it's been an uncharacteristic fall here, something different happening there. They are major faults. So the team is good. It's a good team with good routines and pretty flawless sets that they can put up. It's a matter of making sure that gets put up throughout the entire meet, every meet going forward.
The Seawolves of Alaska Anchorage are coached by Marie-Sophie Bogish. She's assisted by Kendra Daniels. We already mentioned Gard Young, the head coach of BYU. His associate head coach is Natalie Brookman. Assistant coach with her specialty on the floor, Brogan Evanson, and volunteer coach is McKenna Giles. BYU obviously the heavy favorite here today, but again, opportunities for some new faces, Mikkel. How much do you feel like that will impact potential score?
Competing against a different team, I don't see it impacting the scores very much. What I am excited about are the millions of children here today. There is so much excitement here in the Marriott Center, and that kind of energy you can really feed off of.
We anticipate around 3,000 to 3,500 kids who will maintain probably a level of at least 90 decibels for the duration of the meet. And I mentioned earlier today on BYU Sports Nation that gymnastics Kids Day is a little bit different than the basketball scenario. When they come in for basketball, it's just there's this constant high-pitched shrill. I think they have a little bit of reverence for some moments within a gymnastics meet compared to just a crazy basketball meet.
I feel like basketball, you can just be crazy the whole time. I do feel like with the gymnastics meets, they watch the routine, they cheer, they watch the routine, they cheer. And it is just so much fun.
The white pom-poms are out. And the Kids Day atmosphere, always very unique. They do this every year. And of note, BYU will now compete every gymnastics meet in the Marriott Center moving forward. It was a little bit nostalgic against Utah State last Friday night when the Cougars finished their own senior night, knowing that that's going to be the last gymnastics meet ever in the Smith Fieldhouse.
I'm super happy for the seniors that they got to compete in the Smith Fieldhouse. It's so fun as a home team to compete in the Smith Fieldhouse. It's a little smaller. The crowd is right there. They're right there with you. It's a really fun environment. However, it can be challenging as the away team. So exciting for the away teams, a little bit of a bummer for the home team. I'm glad they had that opportunity to give it a proper goodbye.
There's Cosmo the Cougar in the house. A look at the Seawolves of Alaska Anchorage as they prepare for their uneven bars rotation. This will be 2 stops in the Beehive State for the Seawolves. After competing against BYU today, they will take on Utah State, another MRGC foe, this Friday. This also marks the first ever meet for the Seawolves in Provo, and it ends a 14-day gap between competitions. BYU opening up on vault. Sophie Dudley just completed her first vault. Mikkel, your reaction to what Sophie Dudley just pulled off?
Sophie just did a really big Yurchenko full, a little bit wild on the landings. What we're looking for on vault is a combination of height and distance from the vault and the ever coveted stuck landing. Every little move on the landing is a deduction, so we're going to try to minimize the deductions as much as possible.
So a little bit of a hop from Sophie Dudley, but yes, a very powerful gymnast, plenty of amplitude and strength in that vault. And now we move over to the uneven bars, where the Seawolves will begin their rotation.
On bars, we're going to be looking for 2 release moves minimum, in addition to handstands, needing to be exactly vertical, within 10 degrees of vertical, and a stuck dismount, as always.
This is Rachel Decius.
Nice cow hop, Jaeger immediate shoot over, a lot of good connection value right there. The gymnasts get high scores by doing either really hard tricks or by connecting a bunch of tricks in a row. You see there, giant half, into the toe on front tuck dismount. What is exciting about having the Seawolves down here in Provo today is we're going to see a lot of different moves that we don't normally get to see. Typically in college, we see the same routines over and over. However, the Seawolves have some interesting choreography and composition that they have put through, and it makes it really fun to watch.
Second vault for BYU now. Whoa!
Huge vault, full onto the vault, back tuck off. That vault has a 9.95 start value, meaning the highest it can score is a 9.95. We should be looking at a very good score. Honestly, the amplitude was great. The landing was quite controlled. Good score for the Cougars.
We'll get you those scores as they are given to us and make them available for those watching across the country and across the globe. There's Madison Raisley Patton with the second vault for BYU. She'll be followed by Sydney Benson. And now back over to the uneven bars for the second in this first rotation from the Alaska Seawolves. Seeing unofficially a 9.75 for Rachel Decius on that opening bars routine.
Honestly, that's a pretty good score. A good opening score. You want your opening gymnast to just hit. Beautiful giant full right into the Tkachev. Beautiful handstand on the giant half. Bell to handstand, toe circle. Heads up to high bar for a front giant into a big double pike. Great control, tiny step on the landing. Overall, that was a very good dynamic set.
Correction on that score from Decius. It comes in as a 9.7 even. Still a pretty solid score for Alaska to open up their bars rotation. We await score number 2, Sophie Dudley with the 9.75 on vault. Here is Sydney Benson, third to vault.
Wow, that was a great vault right there. Lots of good amplitude, beautiful form in the air. What we want to see is the gymnast completes the full twist while they're very high in the air and then can look for the ground, and Sydney demonstrated that beautifully.
A 9.825 for Raisley Patton, and we'll see what Benson brings in for BYU in that number 3 spot. Sydney Benson is a gymnast on this Guard Young squad that has throughout the course of the season taken on a more prominent role. And she's not super vocal, Mikkel, but she leads by her consistency with her gymnastics, and she's become a consistent veteran leader that they can count on.
And that's the kind of leader that you want. You don't want someone just talking. You want someone that's going to get up and do their set and set the tone for what the other gymnasts should expect themselves to do.
Still awaiting the score from Alyssa Manley, who is second to go on the bars for the Seawolves. Emily Walker will take to the bars once she gets the green light and the go-ahead, and now she has that green flag and has mounted the bars.
Beautiful handstand, nice and vertical. Blind change into a pike kicker. Oh, darn it. Unfortunately, because she peeled off the bar, she will get credit for doing the skill. Her hands touch the bar, however, she will not receive bonus for doing that skill. Each routine starts out at 9.4. You have to do really hard skills or skills in connection to get bonus credit to bring that start value up to a 10-0. That skill right there is worth 1/10 just for doing it. She will not receive that 10th now.
Walker back on the bars now after that fall. When we talk often after we see these bigger mistakes, Mikkel, it's just so critical to fight for every 10th after this in case you have to count this routine.
For sure. In gymnastics, 6 girls compete, only 5 scores count. She has no idea what the gymnasts following her are going to do. Oh, that was a good finish too. She has no idea what is going to happen with the next routines. The Seawolves may have to count this set. So her job was to get up and finish as perfectly as possible, and she did that very well.
Emily Walker being congratulated for finishing her routine strong after the fall. Her teammate Alyssa Manley takes a 9.625. Here's Rebecca Ripley.
Probably the best landing we've seen from Rebecca all season. A big front-on pike half-off worth a 10-0 start value. The 10-0 start values are more difficult to get on vault than the other events, so it's a big deal when we see an athlete competing a 10-0 vault.
Well, that follows a 9.875 from Sydney Benson. So a couple of 9.8 pluses in the 2 and 3 spots, followed by what we think is going to be a pretty good score for Rebecca Ripley. This could potentially be a nice vault rotation for BYU.
And what a great way to start the meet. They know that they need to put up some good consistent scores that they're capable of. And so the fact that they are starting the meet off strong, it just takes a little bit of pressure off their shoulders.
BYU scored a 49.025 on vaults in that win of the dual meet with Utah State last Friday. The Cougars' season high on vault is a 49.2250. Frankly, if they continue these 9.8 plus scores, they might push that. Manley with the 9.625 following the 9.7 from Decius. We await the score from Walker, who had the fall, but now turn our attention to Haley Perkins.
Haley's just waiting on the judges to be ready. The way it works is that the judge has to raise a flag, let you know that they're ready to watch your routine. You're not allowed to start until they do that. Sometimes when the gymnast in front of you falls or has some kind of misconnection, it can take the judges a little bit longer to get ready for you.
Perkins, a sophomore out of Brampton, Ontario, Canada. Took on a big role as a freshman last season for the Seawolves. Her career high on the bars is a 9.7 as she scored against Air Force in January of last season.
Starts with a beautiful handstand toe-on, toe-off right into a Maloney. Immediate pack salto, beautiful connection series there. Oh, handstand pirouette, beautiful pirouette right in that vertical position, exactly what the judges need to see. Maybe a tiny bit short on that handstand right into a Higgins, front giant, huge double tuck, tons of amplitude. I love this camera angle where we can see how high she went above the bar. The double tuck is a slightly easier dismount at this level, and so to do it so well, it gives it a lot of validity.
Listen, we know these routines that Alaska are competing today are not packed with incredibly difficult gymnastics, but that routine right there, really clean.
Yes, very clean, very good. These routines Alaska's doing are almost harder because they don't have the difficulty value, so they have to add connection value, meaning that the routines we're watching are about twice as long as the routines we'll see later in the meet.
A great point. Kylie Equinto with a nice vault for BYU.
Huge vault for BYU. You can see nice and tight in the air, nice controlled landing. That is going to see a good score.
Well, two good routines, one on bars and a nice vault from Equinto for BYU back-to-back. Have to wonder if Haley Perkins is going to tie her career best 9.7 or maybe even beat it here in Provo after her bars routine. Rebecca Ripley with the 9.775, so the judges saw something they didn't like, maybe too much of a pike down in her vault.
I'm guessing it was probably her landing.
Okay.
What we saw is a little bit of chest down. You have to land with your chest as close to vertical as possible on those landings on every event.
Emily Walker hoping her 8.775 can be dropped, and Perkins' score will be really good. Still waiting on that.
Ooh, really holds on to that handstand. Good routine so far, a little fast. We're going a little bit fast over on the bars. Bars is really about pacing. If you get a little ahead of yourself, it's easy to start making mistakes. Wow, she was a rocket during that set, and she just held on to everything. Very good effort. We'll see a slightly slower score, only because there were those really fast, mild mistakes throughout the set, and they just add up so fast. However, held on to it well.
Paula Ruano Barahona. And here is Alex Mason, final vault for BYU. Difficult vault, big step following the 9.875 from Equinto.
Great vault, big step, and the other issue it was a directional step. You could see how that right leg stepped over the left leg. She may receive a slight directional deduction in addition to the step deduction. So powerful though, lots of good amplitude, nice and tight in the air. That's one of her, that landing is probably going to be her only deduction.
BYU through their vault rotation scoring-wise. And going back to the rocket that we saw on the uneven bars, Paula Ruano Barahona, she's a freshman from El Salvador. This roster for Alaska is very international.
It's a fun roster as we were going through it. They bring a lot of different people with different backgrounds together, and they've been really fun to watch this season.
Barahona was the first Salvadorian gymnast to ever compete at the World Championships in 2019 and the Pan American Games. So she's setting a standard. Otherwise, it wouldn't be there if it wasn't for her and her efforts. So she's blazing a trail, if you will.
Yeah.
Here's Madeline Gomez to close out the scoring on bars for the Seawolves.
Handstand blind change into the pike Jaeger. You can see there she does to keep her legs together on her handstand. As a technique choice, you can do the legs together or you can do the straddle cast. Because we're seeing a little bit of knee bend and the toe separation, she will receive a slight deduction on each of those. Big
Gomez.
double A. Oh, darn it. Double A is a very difficult dismount to do. It is ranked E, which means gymnastic skills are ranked A through E based on difficulty, A being the easiest, E being most difficult. Very difficult E-level dismount done there. Unfortunately, because she did touch her hands, the Seawolves will have to count a fall on their bars rotation.
An exhibition routine for BYU on the vault. It's Melissa Earl.
That was a huge Yurchenko half. These exhibition spots are very important because your score cannot count toward the team score. However, it is a chance to come get experience out here competing in front of a crowd, see how your vault would score, and show that you deserve a spot in the lineup.
Now, one of the things I love about this kids meet and the gymnastics crowd in general, Mikkel, is you just root for everyone.
Oh yeah, gymnastics is awesome because everyone just wants to see good gymnastics. And you can be, because there's no defense, we don't have to tear down the other team. We can just be excited for everyone, and the best routines are going to score well.
The kids feel that, and you see that from both Alaska and BYU's student athletes when they're watching each other compete in these dual meets. The support is genuine.
Yeah, you're not happy when you see the other teams fall. You genuinely want all the athletes, you want everyone to get up and hit their routine safely and be proud of the score that they were able to provide for their team.
We'll have an exhibition routine from the Seawolves on bars before we move to rotation 2. The teams will switch events, with BYU moving over to the bars and Alaska taking on the vault. Still waiting on the official score from Madeline Gomez. As it stands, the Seawolves are counting an 8.775 from Emily Walker. They should be able to drop that. Even though Gomez had the fall on her dismount, it should still merit a better score than the fall from Perkins. But a 47.275 tabulated right now, waiting on whatever Gomez brings in.
Free hep into the Shaposhnikova. We don't see Shaposh done very often anymore. This is what I was talking about. It's so fun having a team here that has some different composition and really pulls a lot of different elements from the coded points. I love it. Giant full double tuck to finish out. Oh, a little bit of a knee touch on the ground. She really worked hard to keep that up on her feet. If any part of your body besides your feet touch the ground, it does count as a fall.
BYU with a 49.100 on vault. Alex Mason taking a 9.75. So highlighting the Cougars' vault rotation are Kylie Quinto and Sydney Benson, who both scored a 9.875. Madison Raisley Patton with the third highest score on vault at a 9.825. And leading the scores for Alaska on bars was Rachel Deschus, who led off with a 9.7. That score remains tops after what Alaska put together. We'll take a break and move into rotation 2. You're watching NCAA Women's Gymnastics between BYU and Alaska on BYU TV. Stay with us. We're back live at the Marriott Center, NCAA Women's Gymnastics, a Wednesday matinee special between BYU and Alaska. In the first rotation, the Cougars score a 49.100, highlighted by 3 gymnasts going 9.8 plus in their vaults. The Seawolves were led by Rachel Deschus on the uneven bars with a 47.275. Deschus in at a 9.7 flat. Now the Seawolves will move to the vault. BYU over to the uneven bars. The bars are coached specifically by Gard Young, the head coach at BYU. And he feels like his team is just waiting. They're on the cusp of something super, super special in this rotation.
That's fair. They have put up some really big routines. They have put up very clean sets. But it just seems like when we've been watching, something tragic happens every time. So they're right there and then tripping right at the finish line. So that's what we're hoping for tonight. We're hoping to just see the routines hit the way they've been warming them up.
Yeah, so many times BYU's been right there, right, so close to that big time score. And when I say big time score, you go 49.250, 49.3, now you're in a really good place. That's on pace for that high 196 score overall into the 197s. We've seen it so many times in previous years, Mikkel, but they just haven't been able to climb up to that 49.3 mark. And that's what I say when he feels like we're right on the cusp of that.
They are right there. And even when they haven't had a fall, there's been some kind of little mishap that has affected the scores going forward. Sometimes when there's a mistake, the scores following the mistake aren't always as high as what you had hoped. So yeah, they're just looking to get up, calm down, do their sets the way they are capable of.
The bars rotation for BYU will be led off by Alex Mason. She'll be followed by Sydney Benson. Kylie Aquinto in the third spot. Lindsay Hunter will compete fourth. Anisha Alvarado, who is one of the 2 seniors being honored by BYU, most recently against Utah State on Friday night, is competing fifth. And then we'll see when it comes to that number 6 spot. There's kind of a contingency plan in place for guard. It will either be Anna Bramlich or Jada Leala Onara. For now, we move to the vault, and the Seawolves open up rotation 2.
So what we're seeing right now is the warm-ups. What happens at gymnastics meets is the athletes come about 2 hours early. Everyone warms up on all their events. They do the march out, very exciting, and then the athletes get about 2 to 3 minutes on each event. And we could just hear the buzzer, their time is up. The routines we will see next are the competition sets.
Final words of encouragement as the BYU bars gymnasts gather around and they chalk up. By the way, I've always wondered, what is that called where you get the chalk? Is there a specific?
The chalk bucket.
It's just the chalk
Yeah, the
bucket.
bin, the chalk bucket.
There's no formal fancy name for that thing?
Someone should be doing a better job marketing it.
This question came up from a family member of mine a few weeks back. Said, Spencer, I've been watching gymnastics. Like when they're around that little thing, they put chalk on their hands. Like, what is that? It's like, is it the chalk stanchion? Is it
the stanchion?
I'm like, I don't know. I need to ask Mikkel. She knows everything.
I wish I had something more exciting to contribute. Usually, it's honestly a garbage can with the lid turned upside down.
This is a little nicer.
Yeah, this is a high quality chalk bucket.
There is the first official vault from Alaska.
What we just seen performed was a Yurchenko layout. It has a 9.75 start value, meaning the highest the athlete will be able to score is 9.75.
And now to the uneven bars for BYU's opening routine with Alex Mason.
Big toe on, toe off, right into the Maloney. Immediate pack. What you'll notice about BYU is that their form is just phenomenal, and they're really dynamic to watch. They really make sure they hit those handstands fast. All of their moves are very intentional looking. There's not really a slurry look about them. Big double A to a huge stuck landing. What a great set for BYU to start out with and really set the tone for how they expect this rotation to go.
Alex Mason.
She's not excited about it, is she?
An A-level performance on the uneven bars. There's the second vault from Alaska. And you'll notice that this meet is going to move quickly. Not as many replays. It's going to be at a lightning pace, McKenna.
The rocket pace.
Yeah.
We're going to rocket through the meet. Great vault, Yurchenko, tuck full, 9.9 start value from Madeline. She did a great job, chest nice and high on the landing. A little bit of a directional issue. You can see there's lines on the vault mat. You are expected to land and stay inside the lines. There's not a set deduction for going outside. However, they'll say, oh, that was a little bit crooked. We're going to take a small deduction.
So Madeline Gomez will wait for her score on vault. She followed up a 9.425 from Ariana De Souza. And now Sydney Benson, second to compete for the BYU Cougars in their home digs, the Marriott Center.
Beautiful handstand, toe on, toe off, right into the Tkachev. Shoot handstand, maybe a tiny bit tight Hips a little bit closed as she caught the bar, but beautiful handstand right there, going into a big dismount.
Oh my goodness.
Huge double leg. Again, lots of excitement. What a great.
Fantastic routine. Sydney Benson expecting a nice score after her stuck landing. You mentioned a few nitpicky deductions in that routine.
Yes, and it was so critical. I'm being so critical, but the judges also have to be critical. So if we don't see, that 10-0, that was if I was just a gymnastics fan watching that, I think that was pretty darn perfect. The judges are going to take a couple little deductions here and there, so that's why we might not see, that 10 that we're hoping for.
A 9.450 for Alyssa Manley. Apologies, I got ahead of myself. Madeline Gomez will be the third to compete on vault for the Seawolves. 9.425, 9.450. A little bit of a trend up from one gymnast to the next, and now Madeline Gomez will head to the vault. Alex Mason scores a 9.825 in her opening routine for BYU on the uneven bars. We'll see what the judges divvy out for Sydney Benson and see if they agree with.
I thought it was a great set.
Mikhail Merkley. It is a 9.850.
That's a very fair score. That was a great set. The part of me that just loves high scores was hoping for a 9.9, but honestly, that was fair. That's a fair score.
Kylie Equinto.
You can see down here on the little score chart, one judge did give her a 9.9. The way gymnastics works, there are two sets of judges. One gave her a 9.9, one gave Sid a 9.8, and then they have to average the two scores together.
And there you have it, your math lesson on a Wednesday afternoon from Mikhail Merkley. A 9.85, Kylie Equinto. This is a young lady that Guard Young feels like can be BYU's next great star.
And you can see it in everything that she does. Her technique is just fabulous. Another beautiful pirouette. It's hard to do those pirouettes right in the handstand. BYU excels at that. Really great routine so far. Big double leg. Little tiny too much power going into that. Little hop backwards. Honestly, that will be a minimal deduction. The way landing deductions work is big hop, big deduction, small hop, small deduction.
Here's Celia Hildebrand.
Worked really hard to keep that up on her feet. The front handspring front pike. Big upgrade from last year. Last year she competed the front tuck. By upgrading that to a pike, she's able to get a 9.9 start value, which any 10th that you can, any possibility of having a higher score, that's a big deal for your team. So adding that 10th to your start value is a big upgrade.
Hildebrand, the fourth to go on vault for Alaska. And our lightning pace continues right back over to the uneven bars with BYU. Lindsey Hunter will be the next to compete for the Cougars, following Kylie Equinto. And here we go with Lindsey Hunter.
Beautiful handstand into a huge Tkachev. Tons of amplitude, nice big straddle, free hip into the bail. Pretty flawless routine so far. We're looking for a big dismount. Double layout. Wow! Wow, that is going to be a huge score.
Will it be the first 9.9 of the day?
When you can just, that's an exclamation point at the end of your routine. When you can just stick your landing like that, phenomenal.
That's glue on the mat. I mean, like a no-doubter.
Not a scandal, like they're not gluing their feet.
No, certainly not insinuating that. But, I mean, as we looked at the Seawolves once again back on beam, There is Montana Fairbairn.
And that was a huge vault we got to witness. 10-0 start value. Full twist onto the vault. Pike off. Really hard to do.
We anticipate that with the difficulty level going up will perhaps grant the Seawolves their highest score on vault that we have seen to this point. Hunter, after that stuck landing, great routine. We just wonder if it's going to be the first 9-9 of the day.
I am so excited about the rest of this lineup because Hunter just put up a huge set. Anissa Alvarado is known for her fantastic bar work.
Final preparations for Anissa Alvarado, and continuing the thought that I was sharing about glue and feet on the mat, where there's just no doubt about it. Like, you just stuck, right? There are,
like
moments in sports, yes. There are moments in sports, like a home run in baseball, where it comes off the bat and you just know that's like 100 feet outside of the fence. Like, it's a no-doubter home, just crushed.
Yes.
That's the type of feeling that I got from that landing.
Oh yeah,
from
it's
Lindsey Hunter.
awesome.
Just perfect. No doubt.
It would be a scandal if it didn't score well.
Yeah. We're here for drama, okay? This is what we do. Still waiting on that score from Lindsey Hunter. Here is a beautiful gymnast on the uneven bars, Anissa Alvarado.
Anissa has so much difficulty in this routine. She starts with the pack, comes back with the toe on toe off right into the Van Leeuwen, right into a huge dismount.
And another stuck landing.
Another lawn dart. So good.
The expressions tell the story.
We have been hoping, Spencer and I have been hoping for a 9.95 for Anissa all season long, and I would be so surprised if she did not receive it.
That's Allie McClure on vault for Alaska. Fairbairn, indeed, with that difficult start value, scoring a 9.650, respectable to lead the Seawolves. McClure with the fall, but the good news for Allie is even with that fall, there were 5 relatively clean vaults, and the Seawolves will be able to drop that last fall in the number 6 spot. Lindsey Hunter with a 9.875.
We were so close.
Just missing the 9.9. And I saw Guard Young's reaction when that score came up. Just almost a grimace came across his face. You have to wonder if he might petition.
If there's certain
a
things
few
you
more
can,
tenths.
yes, there's certain things you can petition for. It's a risky move. If you feel like the judges missed a connection or some kind of start value element, you can petition that, and if they receive the petition and they say, oh yeah, you're right, we were wrong, that score is upgraded. However, if they say, no way, we're standing by our decision, then the team loses a 10th off of their final score.
Anna Bramlett gets the go-ahead to compete 6th on the uneven bars. There was a question about who it would be. It is Bramlett. Will Alvarado hit the 9.95 that she has just been striving for this season, or will it be just short?
Huge routine so far for Anna. Beautiful Jaeger, such good distance from the bar right into a shoot over. Another gymnast capable of a big landing.
Oh, this is as good as it has been. Like, from an overall standpoint on a bars team this year. Yes.
Yes.
This is the best that I have seen BYU compete as a team in this rotation.
Yes, they're looking fantastic. Tiniest shift back with that step from Anna. Overall, huge routine. First release, tons of amplitude, lots of space from the high bar. Immediate shoot over gave her a lot of good connection bonus. Great routine.
Still waiting on those scores for Anissa Alvarado, Anna Bramlett. That's big for Anna. She had a fall in Friday's meet against Utah State.
Yeah, she had a fall last week and the week before, which it can really get in your head. I feel like both of those falls I was surprised by. I've never seen, she doesn't fall that often. And so it can really get in your head, and we can go out and hit and remember, oh yeah, this is how I do it. This is the kind of gymnast I am. It's just really reassuring. It's a weight off your shoulders.
The vault score is official for Alaska. They'll drop the 8.950 from McClure and take a 47.375, led by Montana Fairbairn's 9.65. At the midway point of this meet already. BYU will have, I believe, an exhibition routine on the uneven bars. It will be Jada Leala Onara. Receiving encouragement from Anissa Alvarado. Oh, Mikhail, a 9.875.
Are you kidding me?
How does that not hit at least a 9.9?
I don't know. I don't know what they are taking.
Wow. Well, as frustrating as that is, the good news is, if Anna Bramlett can score at least a 9.825, then BYU could drop a 9.8. Tells you you're in a good position, and the Cougars would have their season high score in the bars rotation.
I feel like she definitely did a 9.825 routine, but I genuinely feel like Anissa's bar set was better than a 9.875.
Agreed. Totally agree. I feel like Lindsay Hunter deserved a 9.9, and I think
Agreed.
Alvarado, at worst, was a 9.9.
Yes, agreed.
So you wonder, does Guard Young take the risk and petition for an additional 10th?
It's so hard because you can literally only petition certain things. So gymnastics is really subjective. So there's no rule about, hey, this is 1/10, this is up to a 10th, this is up to 2/10.
Sure,
you
sure.
can take what you want. So unless they're worried about a connection value is missed or something with the start value, you can't really petition it.
Jada Leala Onara, the exhibition routine on bars for Guard Young and BYU.
Beautiful set so far. Again, just so dynamic. The form is beautiful. Great handstands. Huge double A. Tiny shift with the right foot. But I love Jada's double A. It gets tons of height and tons of distance. She looks like she is literally flying.
Now the drama is, will BYU beat their season best score on bars of a 49.225? They're already there. We just wait to see what Bramlett scores for the Cougars. And we're told it's not better than a 9.8. So BYU will tie their season high score on bars and headed to the third rotation with a combined 98.325, which is nothing to shake your head at. It's a very solid score. BYU's pacing for high 196s.
It is a solid score. I personally just feel like it deserved to be higher. It's hard to be excited at such a good thing when you feel like it was deserving of more.
Could not agree more. And I'm sure this will be a conversation with Guard Young and his coaches after the meet. We'll take a break and head to rotation 3 right after this. BYU in control in this dual meet against Alaska. Stay with us. Welcome back to the Marriott Center. Look at the rotation scores after 2 events. BYU with a 98.325, Alaska in with a 94.650. You know what, we're just feeling like BYU kind of got hosed in that bars rotation. We typically don't push that agenda, but today it's Kids Day.
We want the scores.
We want the high scores. Do it for the kids.
Do it for the children here.
And frankly, I made a promise to Jerem Jordan and Jason Shepard on BYU Sports Nation this morning when I was previewing the meet. The Mandalorian on Disney Plus, new season starts streaming today. And they challenged me to work in some Mandalorian commentary as soon as a 9-9 appeared.
Then
And so I thought I was going to be able to do it on 2 different occasions in the bars routine, and we didn't get there.
Beam. We'll see it on Beam. I have a lot of confidence.
Hopefully it's Elise Rollins, BYU's All-American. But in all seriousness, as we look back at the bar scores for BYU, and I'm defending you here, Mikkel, because you said to Lindsey Hunter for sure at least a 9.9. One judge gave her a 9.95. The other went 9.8.
And I wish we could see what judge number 2 felt like the deductions were. But as we look at here, judge 1 gave a 9.95, judge 2 gave a 9.8. On the next routine, judge 1 gave a 9.8 and judge 2 gave a 9.95. So we are a little confused about what is being taken. A 10.5 at this level is it's a big difference.
It's a big difference.
Yes.
Well, then Anna Bramlett, one judge with a 9.7, the other with a 9.9. Huge range for the level of gymnastics we are seeing. Had it been slightly wider, if it's more than 2/10, the judges have to have a conference and talk about what's going on. Where it is right at 2/10, the score is submitted and we move on. I almost want that rule to change, especially at this level.
At this level, have it
like if you're not within
a
tenth
lower
and a half,
margin.
a 10.5, like, but 2/10 feels like
a lot.
just too much.
I agree. It
too
does
much
feel
space.
a lot at this level.
These are world-class athletes, and frankly, these judges are trained at a very, very high level to be accurate and to be consistent and close to each other. And so, it just feels like there's too much there.
Yeah, agreed.
Well, as it stands, again, BYU still pacing for a really good score. We feel like it could be better. But now the
My
Cougars
goodness, we're so bitter here
head
at
over
the
to
table.
the balance beam. Again, this is not typically our mantra, right?
Usually we're pro, just the judges have a
Everything.
hard job and we're just sitting here.
They do have a hard job.
They have a hard job and we just sit here and judge them.
This is where they need to have like an earpiece and a microphone on
So that they
we
can tell
go
us.
to the in-meet. That's a next level gymnastics access thing that hasn't really been ventured into.
That would be
Is
super cool.
having judges mic'd up in the meet to explain, once the scores come out, why they gave the score that they gave.
That would be awesome, to be honest, as a gymnastics fan and sitting here at the table. I would love it if we actually knew what that 10.5 difference was.
All right, that idea is patent pending.
Trademarked.
We'll see what we can do.
The Spencer speaker will be coming to a
Yes.
judge table near you.
As we push forward, here is Alex Mason leading BYU off on the balance beam to begin rotation 3.
Alex is such a strong opening competitor for BYU. Opens with a beautiful flick lay, really holds on to that landing. Anytime a gymnast does a wobble or a bobble or anything out of the ordinary, we will see a slight deduction for that.
Oh no. Well, now the pressure's on BYU.
Pressure's on BYU. That Alex had 30 seconds to kind of pull it together, a restart as she got back on the beam. You know, the last time Alex competed in here, she did have a horrific fall on that skill. It makes you wonder if that was in her head a little bit.
Yeah, we thought after that fall at the Marriott Center in that dual meet against Southern Utah that she might be done for the season.
Yeah, it was bad. It makes you kind of wonder if that was in the back of her head. There's a little extra pressure. That was definitely not a characteristic fall from Alex, which is why she's up first. But did the rest of the routine beautifully. Huge double twisting dismount. She gets 2/10 added to her routine just for doing that level of difficulty on the dismount.
A disappointing expression from Alex Mason after, and it's a fair term, the uncharacteristic fall that you said, Mikkel, we just saw. Again, if you can now manage to hit the final 5 routines, you don't have to count the fall. But what we have seen trend for BYU this season is when they do have an early fall, they typically have another one, and they're counting at least one fall.
Yes, that's what we're hoping to not see tonight, but that has been a little bit of a pattern, unfortunately.
There's Madeline Gomez to open up things for the Seawolves in their 3rd rotation on the floor.
On floor, we are looking for tumbling that goes both forward and backwards. Use of the entire floor. The gymnast needs to go to each of the corners. We're also looking for leaps, jumps, and turns to be done throughout the set. prepping for her second pass. Front handspring Rudy straddle jump. You are allowed to do a jump out of one of your passes. It's a strategic move. You can get some bonus for it, but also sometimes it's a little bit easier to stick. The sticking rules on floor are different from the other 3 events. On the other 3 events, if you move your foot, it is a deduction. On floor, you are allowed 1 controlled step. It is called a lunge, and it is not a deduction. Round off, back 1.5, front layout into that lunge we talked about. Legs a tiny bit bent on that back 1.5. We'll see a slight deduction for that. Overall, got up, hit a routine, a little bit of pressure off the rest of the Seawolves. They know they have at least 1 score that should be pretty decent.
Madeline Gomez, graduated by her teammates. And now back over to the balance beam where the pressure mounts, and Raisley Patton literally mounts the beam.
Madison is a true freshman, which can be really beneficial following a fall. In club gymnastics, prior to college, you're just out there competing for yourself. It really doesn't matter what anyone does around you, because all that matters is your routine. When you get into college, suddenly you're competing for a team. Sometimes it's helpful for the freshmen. They haven't quite transitioned into feeling that pressure yet of a fall ahead of them. And so far we're seeing a great set. Very dynamic, beautiful switch leap, nice 180-degree split. Beautiful. Beautiful acro series, super smooth. Madison has a big dismount upgrade for the year, round off 1.5.
We're ultra confident right now.
Exactly what BYU needs. Someone to just get up, hit a set, and just kind of like a restart to the rotation.
Wow.
Great set, great landing. That was a very good routine. Madison's coaches are going to be very proud of her.
An important routine for BYU after the unexpected fall from Alex Mason to begin the beam rotation. Madison Raisley Patton delivering in a big way. And based on the tough scores that we've seen today, as good as that beam routine was, it makes you wonder, what's she gonna score?
It's hard to know what to expect for sure.
You're watching Mackenzie Robinson for the Seawolves on floor. Another Seawolves gymnast out of Ontario, Canada.
Big double tuck.
Robinson, the 5'5" junior.
Beautiful leap pass. Sometimes in college gymnastics, what is traditional are 3 tumbling passes per routine. However, sometimes if your routine has enough difficulty throughout it, we'll see the athlete only do 2 tumbling passes. It's a strategic move just to minimize deductions that are happening.
Oh yeah.
Back 1.5, front tuck right there. You can see the mat on the floor, totally allowed. Just helps protect the ankles a little bit.
Mackenzie Robinson, representing Silverthorne Collegiate Institute, where she prepped in Ontario. And I bring that up because this is one of the more random but fun notes that I came across last night. She was the MVP of her high school's ultimate Frisbee team.
I love it. I think I love it extra because gymnasts aren't known for being good at other sports.
Well, not just that, she was the MVP of her track and field team too.
Yes, like that's pretty incredible, to be honest.
Mackenzie Robinson, well done on the floor. Madison Raisley-Patton with a 9.825. Now it's Mina Margraf, who scored a 9.9 on this event just 5 days ago.
Yeah, Mountain Rim Gymnastics Conference Specialist of the Week, another great performer. BYU has tons of great performers in their lineup. We're just hoping we can see the 5 girls hit so that we can drop that fall. Mina has such beautiful lines in her leaps. You can see her routine has quite a few leaps in it because she does them so well. We've seen a couple bobbles throughout the set. Anytime that that upper body just moves left or right slightly, that is a slight deduction. Nice, strong dismount, really holds on to that landing.
Well, it's not going to be a 9.9 this time around for Margraf, but importantly, she hit the routine.
Stayed up on the beam, and even though there were a couple small deductions, they were very small. I would be really surprised if that was lower than, oh, she's showing Coach Brogan those little bobbles off the side. I'd be surprised if it was lower than a 9.8.
We've not received any scores on floor yet, so still waiting to tell you what happened with Mackenzie Robinson, our ultimate Frisbee star, and her score. Montana Fairbairn due up next for Alaska Anchorage. The floor is, collectively speaking, the Seawolves' second best event statistically. And they will finish in their strongest routine, or strongest rotation, on beam, where they rank 65th nationally, 67th on the floor.
Watching the Seawolves warm up on beam, I'm super excited to see them compete. They have a lot of different skills, a lot of difficulty, stuff we just don't get to see very often. You can see on the floor, it is blue with a white outline. You have to stay in the blue. If a gymnast steps out onto the white, it is a 1/10 deduction. Opens up with a front Rudy, or a front layout with a 1.5 twist. You can see the standing back tuck there. You are required to tumble both forward and backwards. However, some gymnasts are just excellent front tumblers or excellent back tumblers. So we'll occasionally see the standing back tuck, a punch front off the side. That does count as her back pass. Prepping for a front layout, front full. A little bit of a bounce on that landing, so while you are allowed to take a step out, it has to be a controlled step to not have a deduction. We'll see maybe a 10th off the routine for that landing.
Well, of note, this is the first time that Montana Fairbairn has ever competed on floor in a scoring rotation.
Yeah, she's been exhibitioning and getting out there and getting that experience, but it's a different pressure when you're actually in the lineup.
There are the scores for the first two competitors from Alaska. Gomez with the 9.475, Robinson with the 9.450, and that's Montana Fairbairn, first ever scoring routine on the floor. We'll see what she gets. Now here's Sophie Dudley back over to the pressure-packed balance beam for BYU.
Super strong opening so far. Great flick lay to start. Very solid lead pass right there. Hit all of her angles beautifully and just really solid landings. What we don't want to see from BYU right now is them competing not to fall. We don't want to see them get stiff. We want to see that relaxed, competing to win, competing to do it just the way you've done it in practice rather than stiffening up and having a little bit of a hard time. Great landing, another hit set for the Cougars.
Well, now it gets very interesting because you hit a couple of star performers at the end of your beam rotation. Typically, they handle the pressure. Can BYU do something that we haven't really seen them do this year? After an early fall, kind of bear down and finish strong.
Yeah.
Mina Margraf with a 9.725. Raisley Patton still with the best score through the first three competitors for BYU on beam with the 9.825. Sophie Dudley will patiently wait for her score. She'll be followed by Elise Rollins and Heidi Schooley. Now back to the floor is Ariana D'Souza.
Ariella opens up with a huge, oh darn it, huge opening first pass. A front handspring front double twisting front full, or double twisting layout. That's a very hard pass to do. It's ranked E level. However, because she stepped off into that white, the judges will have to take an automatic 1/10 off of her routine.
You see how powerful she can be. That's a tough break with the first step. She scored a 9.825 this year.
Look at the amplitude on these tumbling passes. They are flying.
She is certainly capable of a big score in this event.
Round off, back 1.5 front layout. Dang it. Because she landed out of bounds. The way it's written in the code is 1/10 off per incident. So I'm actually not 100% sure how that would be scored. Typically an incident is I take a step out, that's a 10th off. If I take a step out and then another step out, that's 2/10 off. She landed with both feet out of bounds, but because she did it at one time, I think that will only be a 1/10 of deduction on the final pass.
D'Souza's just a freshman out of Fairfield, California, and again, tons of potential, especially in that floor routine. Elise Rollins, the beam queen at BYU, competing on beam for the final time in front of her home fans.
It is kind of a mind game when you're a senior and you know it's your final routine. This is all you've known your entire life. These guys have been, she's been Elise the gymnast since she was 4 years old. So it's a little bit hard to stay in the moment and do what you need to do.
And she stays on.
I have never seen her do that. You wonder though, how much that's affecting her. The fact, you know, it's your last meet of your career here at home. There is a little bit of pressure on her. She is the returning All-American. But at the end of the day, she stayed on the beam. That's the only deduction we've seen so far in that set. Beautiful landing, huge dismount.
Well, as frustrating as that might be for Elise to take somewhat of a significant deduction with that big wobble, she didn't fall.
She didn't fall. We will see When you say significant, you're right. So she turned sideways, she flailed the arms, the leg came up. We're going to be looking at least 3/10. However, if she had fallen, it would be that plus the 5 for the fall. So it was a great fight, and she really minimized what could be taken there.
This will help BYU maintain certainly a more respectable score, assuming that Heidi Schooley can deliver as the anchor role.
Yes.
Back to the floor, here's Alyssa Manley once again. Sophomore out of Albuquerque, New Mexico.
Double pike really works to hold on to that stuck landing. There's one of those sneaky side passes we mentioned earlier that will count as her front tumbling pass. Second pass, round off, back 1.5, step out, round off, back 1.5. That was a very long pass, and she did a phenomenal job keeping it on the blue. Overall, a pretty good set.
Alyssa Manley, MPSF All-Academic Team member with a 3.77 overall GPA. She was voted by her teammates as the best overall student athlete, meaning you're awesome at gymnastics on your team, and you're also very smart.
That's the great compliment.
Heidi Schooley, can she finish out the beam rotation without giving BYU a second fall and having to count a major mistake?
Beautiful flick lay. I hate how nervous I'm feeling right now. I cannot imagine what she is feeling.
Well, if that first flick lay is any indication, she's in a good place mentally right now.
Beautiful hitch kick into the side aerial. Maybe a tiny bit slow on the connection. I'd be surprised if the judges didn't give it to her. Oh my gosh, please stay on the beam. She stays on the beam. BYU's not going to have to count a fall. Again, a little bit of a bobble there, a little bit of a stressful moment, but she fought for it and she stayed on.
There's a somewhat of a moral victory there.
Yeah.
Elise Rollins, for those wondering, a 9.7 Raquel.
Okay.
So staying on the beam.
That seems fair.
Still grants BYU at least the 9.7.
Yes.
And I wonder if Schooley's going to score somewhere in that 9.75 area.
I would say 9.7 to 9.75, yeah. The bobble wasn't quite as much, but it just seems like once you start taking deductions, you just start really taking deductions. So that's why it's so important as an athlete to not give any excuse for deductions to be taken.
Rachel Decius will finish out the floor for Alaska. No official score from Manley just yet. BYU's not going to have anything to write home about in terms of a beam score this rotation, but
nothing to be sad about either,
They get to drop the 9.050 after the first competitor, Alex Mason, fell, and they'll still be in the high 48s. So the Cougars are still pacing for 196.5, 196.6, which is a solid score.
They're just a team that they don't want to be in those 48 ranges anymore. They want to be 49 plus every rotation, every time. So even though that is a fine score, it's still not what they want. Ooh. Keeps it in bounds. We will see a larger deduction on the landing just because it was a little bit wild, but great fight keeping it on the blue. Finishes up with a nice back 1.5 front layout. These guys are doing a great job. They had a huge travel to get down here. Being the away team can be really hard. You're flying far, you're tired, you're sleeping in hotel rooms with your teammates, your eating schedules off. And then to do an 11 a.m. meet is a little bit different as well. So the fact that these guys have all that on their plates and are still performing as well as they are is very impressive.
Rachel Deschus rounds out the scoring for Alaska on the floor. Heidi Schooley was the last to compete for BYU on the beam. And I believe we'll have an exhibition routine for BYU on the beam in Lauren Ono. She was scheduled to do that before the meet began.
I'm curious to see the score for Schooley. The judges have been conferencing.
Yeah, so that typically means they're not within 2/10.
Yes, so that means we're either going to see something a little higher than we'd hoped or lower, depending on how the judges felt like those deductions needed to be taken.
Just waiting on Schooley's final tabulation. BYU right now at a 48.125, but that score will dramatically increase once you count Schooley's. We think around a 9.7, maybe 9.725, when they can drop that 9.050 from Alex Mason. Now we watch Lauren Ono on beam in her exhibition routine. And Lauren has been a contributor in this rotation on multiple occasions. But, you just go through a mental funk sometimes.
You do.
She's trying to work through that.
Even though we know that Lauren is fully capable of being in the lineup, these exhibition routines are still really important. They keep you fresh, they keep you competition ready, so that if she does need to step in at any point, she's not rusty at all. Huge opening pass for Lauren. Those 3 skill acro series are very difficult to do. You actually get bonus just for connecting all 3 in a row. Again, BYU just has such dynamic gymnastics. I love how her legs snap up and then snap back together. Sometimes you'll see the athletes, they'll snap their legs up aggressively and then they'll kind of fall together slowly. That's something that BYU does really well.
The Cougars would have loved that routine today.
Yes, they would have. And it'll be interesting to see what lineups look like going forward.
Well, Mikkel, you wondered if that variation was going to give BYU maybe a surprisingly higher score or a lower score, and it comes in the low end with Schooley at 9.675.
I'm assuming what happened, we saw her do, it's called a hitch kick into a side aerial. In order to get the connection value, you cannot stop moving at all. She had a slight pause. It was enough that it could have gone either way. The judges could have said it was connected, or they could have said, no, we cannot accept that. And it looks like it went more that direction.
Talked about some enigmas that BYU had experienced on bars, which is their strongest rotation statistically speaking, but the beam might be the biggest enigma of all for the Cougars.
Which is so frustrating for them because we've seen every one of these gymnasts perform so well. And when you talk to Coach Natalie, they do great in practice too. It's just little tiny things that keep happening in the meets.
So I'm looking at a line graph right now based on the scores that BYU has had on beam this season, and it's just, to say the least, erratic. This is an exhibition routine for Alaska Anchorage on the floor, so this will not count. The Seawolves will take a 47.325 after a 9.450 from Deschus comes in. They'll drop the 9.2 from D'Souza.
Erratic was a great word to describe what we've been seeing as far as beam total scores, and it makes it really hard to feel confident in your lineup. It makes you feel like you're hoping you all hit instead of going in and knowing you're going to hit, and
Sure.
how good are we going to hit.
Take, for example, Mikhail, the first 3 weeks, BYU scores low 48s to mid 48s, and then all of a sudden they just explode for a 49.350. And then they go to a 49.275 and you think, okay, they figured it out.
Yes.
Back down to a 48.4. And even 5 days ago, 49.225, okay, they're back.
Yes.
And now back into the 48s today.
It's so hard, and I know that the coaches are doing everything they can. They have a really great mental coach, Maddie Gates, who comes in and works with the girls, and they're literally doing everything they can, and we're just not really seeing it on a consistent level when we get to the meet setting.
That exhibition floor routine will wrap up the third rotation. Come back with your updated scores after those 3 rotations as BYU moves to the floor and the Seawolves move over to the beam. NCAA Women's Gymnastics, a dual meet and a Wednesday matinee special continues on the BYU TV app right after this. Back for the 4th and final rotation of this dual meet between the BYU Cougars, number 34 team in the country in the latest rankings, against number 70 Alaska. Seawolves currently with a 141.975. BYU at a 147.075. So the Cougars will be looking for a big floor performance to secure the 196 plus final score here today. It is Kids Day in the Marriott Center. Over 3,000 elementary students on hand to watch these two teams compete. Final home meet of the season for BYU before the Cougars head out on the road for a few weeks and then will compete for a conference championship in the Mountain Rim Gymnastics Conference. Specifically, the Cougars will head to Ohio State. Quick turnaround, Mikkel. They compete on Friday. This is a Wednesday morning meet. They'll be in Columbus on Friday night and then have a full week to prepare for Pac-12 opponent Arizona.
I'm gonna be honest, that's the best. When you're a gymnast, I'm assuming any athlete, I don't know, they're not gonna have a practice in between this. So, like, this counts as your practice, and then you have travel day, and then you just get to compete again. You're not gonna go get killed in practice, not gonna have to go do a million sets, and by the end of season, it's your favorite thing.
So as we look ahead, BYU with that number 34 national ranking and a national qualifying score that would put BYU in regionals somewhat comfortably if it started today. There's still the scenario where BYU could be in a play-in, if you will. You don't want to have to compete in a head-to-head meet to earn a spot into what they call the second round now, but the play-in meet is never a fun scenario to be in. You
No.
want to get to that quad meet in a true regional.
For sure. So the teams ranked 29th through the 36th spots, they have to do that play-in meet. So then you have to qualify for that day 2 competition. So not only is there extra stress from having to qualify for that, but there's the extra wear and tear on your body from having to compete an entire extra day. It's just a situation that you would like to avoid.
Well, and at this point, gosh, guess you have to wonder is, like, what would it take for BYU to even get out of that scenario?
I don't know. I've been looking at the scores, and it's so tight. Up there, when we move lower down, there's a lot more wiggle room. If you have a good meet, you can move up 3 or 4 spots. But with these guys, gymnastics has just gotten so competitive. The top teams are getting so competitive. I would be pretty surprised at this point to see them move into that top 28 position. So mentally, I'm sure that they are preparing to be participating in the play-in, to try and win the dual meets and move on to the rest of regionals.
There's just not a ton of time and opportunity to improve your score that much.
Yeah.
That would make that much of a difference.
You'd have to improve your score a lot in order to move up. Like, be scoring 197s type a lot in order to improve your average. It really is just so. Me and my teammates from when I was a gymnast were talking about just how competitive gymnastics has gotten at these upper levels. And we don't know if it's the new NIL rules, if it's making it so gymnasts who would not have been competing at the college level before are now competing. But the expectation is high in order to make it into that top 28 spot.
Yeah, I think it's a fair point, and that's why I asked the question, what's it going to take? It's probably going to be BYU scoring, if not 197, close to 197 over their final 2 meets.
And the trick is you have to drop your highest score in the NQS. So even if they scored a 197, they would not be able to count it unless they did it twice.
Sure, and it's worth noting, BYU's high score on the season is a 196.650.
Right. Which is a little bit lower than we have seen in the past.
We've seen BYU in the past 2 seasons get into the 197 plus area.
Yes, it's these little, technically on beam, they didn't have to count a fall, but they counted a couple bobbles. It's these kind of situations that are keeping them in that really tricky bubble situation as far as rankings go.
The Seawolves open up on the balance beam. Here is Montana Fairbairn.
Beautiful full turn. Great set so far, looking very confident up on the beam. We're going to see a lot of unique acro series from Alaska. We saw a lot of flick lays from BYU on the beam. Here we're going to see a back handspring into a side aerial. Woo, keeps it up. And acro series are just 2 tricky tricks, like a back handspring or a back flip or a front tuck. So anytime you see that 2 connected, you know that the gymnast is counting that as their acro series. What a great opening routine for Alaska.
This is the Seawolves' best rotation. And they'll need a solid score here to break 190 today. This is a team that's been up in the 193 area at some point this season, a 192.250 in their last meet against Iowa State. But again, it's been almost 2 weeks since they've competed, Mikkel.
You do, you get a little bit rusty, and we saw a little bit. We're not going to be up there tonight because floor scores were a little bit lower than they were probably hoping for. A couple mistakes that they're going to have to count. However, this is a good intro to remembering how to compete. They'll be up at Logan on Friday. This team does a lot of a meet on Wednesday, a meet on Friday.
It's a lot to ask. I mean, a 2-week break, and you got to travel from Anchorage to Salt Lake City.
It is, and you compete. Your competition practice and schedule looks different than your in-season schedule. But I feel like where they're so far away from everyone and they have to do these back-to-back meets and then take time off, it would be very hard to plan for mentally and physically the demands that you're asking of these girls.
Eliza Millar being ushered into her floor routine with a chant of "Let's Go Cougars" from this largely kids-driven crowd.
It's unusual that we have this kind of pause before our first gymnast. Eliza's doing a great job just keeping it loose for this unexpected delay.
Great images of these kids enjoying the event today. A long delay here.
Long delay. We see Coach Guard, he's trying to look into what's going on. This is not necessarily untypical during a rotation, but I've actually never seen it happen for a first competitor.
I believe we're getting closer to Eliza Millar being given the green flag to start her routine.
You see the judges are starting to return back to their stations. Not only is this hard for our floor competitor, but over on beam, it is a big, long wait. You usually get ready for your set while your next gymnast is performing. So beam, she's been ready a long time, and she's gonna have to just keep waiting it out.
And we're underway with Eliza Millar.
Beautiful opening leap pass. Typically a gymnast does their tumbling first, however, Eliza does start with the leap pass. It is worth bonus, adding tenths directly back into her routine. Round off back handspring, huge double tuck, really holds onto that landing.
Well, she's been ultra consistent in this floor routine all year, hovering between a 9.8 and a 9.85, Mikkel. Keep in mind, she was awesome on a few occasions for BYU on the beam last year, but now has just kind of become a floor specialist this season.
Yes, and I believe she's still working the other events, but it's just so hard to get into those lineups. I love Eliza talked about when she was on BYU Sports Nation with you, how she loves to compete, and you can see that out here on the floor.
Another really clean, solid routine on the floor for Eliza Millar. We have no reason to believe that will give her anything but what we've seen consistently, 9.8 to a 9.85.
I mean, we say we have no reason to believe, but we've said that a few times tonight.
Optimistic thinking, right? Optimism here. That's a fair point, though. Oh. There's a big fall by Mackenzie Robinson on the beam.
And you know, you have to wonder if she has a very, very big, gosh darn it, she has a big acro series. It is a round off layout, so difficult to do. You will see the gymnast at the highest level competing that. And she had to wait.
A long time.
A long, long time. Getting cold. It's not just a mental thing, it's a physical thing. She's standing there in her leotard, getting ready to compete. You just have to wonder if that played a factor.
The dismount.
Great dismount, really finished up strong, exactly what her coaches will want to see after a fall. After a fall, you have to just get up and you're going for that 9.5 because we don't know what the rest of beam lineup will do. And the Seawolves don't want to have to count a fall.
Montana Fairbairn did score 9.6 even to open up on beam. Mackenzie Robinson understandably have a much lower score because of that fall. And like BYU, Alaska with an early fall, going to have some pressure on to try and keep those Final Four routines all up on the beam. Now we turn our attention back to the floor for BYU and Sydney Benson.
Opens with
Wow,
a
how high is that?
beautiful double back, tons of amplitude. And controls it so well. Sometimes you see these athletes go in the air like that and they can't control the landing, but Sydney knows exactly where she's at.
Listen, Sydney Benson is a beam routine away from being a really, really special all-around performer.
Yes. I'm not sure we'll see that this season. Oh, keeps it up on her feet. You can see she landed just a little bit low. It would have been very easy for her to sit that down, take the fall, but she really held onto it.
Saw her leg kind of cross up on that landing
Yeah,
a little bit, but she sold it.
She sold it. That's a big part of gymnastics, to be honest, is just selling it. Going for a big final pass, round off back handspring double pike.
Oh, so good.
Beautiful. Sydney's just such a beautiful gymnast to watch. Great lines, awesome form, and everything she does, she just does really big.
Sydney Benson, high tens all around from her teammates. Take you back to the beam for Alaska now with Marcella Bonifaci. Still waiting on that score from Robinson to go official.
Another unique series here, aerial into another aerial. I think we're gonna see a situation like we saw in the last rotation where it's a questionable connection. I'm not sure she will get the connection value for the aerial there. That's a hard series to do.
I do have some good news, and this might be surprising for you, Mikkel. The Eliza Millar score on floor for BYU, a career high for Eliza, a 9.875. A 9.875.
There we go.
Robinson with an 8.825. We're watching Marcella Bonifaci right now.
Nice control on that landing. Good set, especially following a fall. You've got to get up and get on the beam and stay on the beam. Just, again, just restart. Just a little restart for your teammates. Take a little bit of pressure off.
Bonifaci, a freshman out of Guatemala City, Guatemala originally. I told you this roster for Alaska is just super international. Here's Sophie Dudley back on floor for BYU. Great opening pass.
Another just really dynamic athlete.
We mentioned Sydney Benson selling that second pass. It kept her score to 9.85.
They could have taken more for that, so great job on Sydney's part. Oh, the amplitude that Sophie gets. She is so tiny, and she just gets so high in the air.
Just maybe it comes together in this floor rotation for BYU. Certainly has the feel that it could right now.
BYU does such a good job with their leaps and jumps also. A lot of times you'll see the teams, they'll do their leaps and they'll kind of bounce out of them, or they won't quite hit their shapes properly, but BYU is very intentional with their leap passes and they look phenomenal. Finishes up with a big double tuck, solid landing.
Sophie Dudley. Mikkel, the highest rotation score that BYU's had in any event this year is a 49.35. They hit it once on beam. They've done it once on floor. I don't want to be dramatic here, but this feels like it
don't want to jinx anything.
It could potentially be the highest rotation score of the entire season with how it's going right now.
And that's what we need. We need that going into trying to change the rankings that they're working with right now. We need that highest score of the season.
Take you back to the beam now with Alaska Anchorage and Rachel Decius. She was the first competitor for Alaska in this meet. On the uneven bars, she scored a 9.7.
Yeah, Rachel's one of the captains for the team, and you can see why so far. We've seen a lot of really good routines put up from her tonight.
Well, you just heard a massive cheer in reaction to the scores that are coming up from Sophie Dudley's floor routine. We'll give those official marks to you in just a moment. Now we're watching Rachel Decius.
Rachel's doing a great job. It got really loud and crazy in here for a second as the BYU floor score was flashed, and she did not let that throw her off her game at all. Huge set for Rachel. This is going to be a great score for Alaska.
Rachel Decius. Really nice routine. Again, Alaska handling what BYU did with that early fall, so everything matters. And the pressure builds. Heidi Schooley, fourth to compete on floor for BYU. Sophie Dudley with the 9.925.
Totally deserved. No, that's not. Sometimes you see a high score like that and you're like, oh, that was generous. No, not at all. Sophie 100% earned that 9.925.
Mikkel, this is the way.
We're here.
To quote the Mandalorian, this is the way.
I'm glad. I hope Jerem's watching from home right now.
Schooley with another pass.
Back 1.5 front layout, keeps it in bounds. Such a fun routine for such a fun gymnast. With a huge double time. Ooh!
A little short on that.
Keeps it up on her feet. Oh, darn it. Okay, she keeps it up on her feet. The way that she shifted her feet around, she's going to receive a little bit higher deduction. If she had just taken the one step and held it, small deduction. One step, small deduction. Because she shifted her feet around trying to stay up, we're going to see a slightly larger deduction for that, which is such a bummer because the rest of the routine was honestly flawless.
Elise Rollins and Rebecca Ripley due up for BYU to close out the floor rotation. There's Paula Ruano Barahona.
Huge opening double wolf turn, followed by a beautiful flick lay. Cat leap into the side aerial, great connection. When we say it has to be connected, that's exactly what it needs to look like. Just not, it has to be smooth.
Decius' score comes in at a 9.625. Barahona so far, no major gaffes. And a nice dismount.
Really solid dismount. Great set. We're going to see that probably, I would imagine that's going to be the highest score for the Seawolves so far this rotation.
Both teams finishing on a high to this point of the fourth rotation. Only Shannon Farrell to go for the Seawolves, and they can drop that 8.825 from Mackenzie Robinson. Elise Rollins competing on floor in front of her home fans now for the final time.
Opens up with a really big double tuck. Such a good landing. Her landings have been phenomenal lately.
Moving to the Kenny Loggins Highway to the Danger Zone portion of this Top Gun routine.
Very difficult leap pass you see there. The ring jump with a full twist. You don't see it done very often.
We've already seen 2 career highs from BYU on the floor. Eliza Millar's 9.875 and Sophie Dudley's 9.925. Elise Rollins sets up for another pass.
Front layout, front full, tons of amplitude, great control. Beautiful floor set for Elise. What a way to go out on your home career.
Take a bow. Sensational senior Elise Rollins. Will we see a 3rd career high on floor? Rollins' previous best is a 9.875.
I would be surprised if we saw less than a 9.875 from that set.
What a floor rotation from BYU after a disappointing beam rotation. This is a nice bounce back.
It says a lot about a team when you can do that. You need to leave the last rotation in the last rotation, whether it was good or bad. You have to leave it and go and do the job that you have ahead of you, and BYU has done that beautifully. Beautiful front aerial back handspring from Shannon over on the beam.
Really important routine right here for Farrell. The Seawolves want to drop.
Very difficult.
Score in the 8s.
Yes, very difficult leap pass, jump pass. Whenever the athlete throws their head back like that, they lose sight of the beam and it becomes so difficult. And she did it really well. The whole routine has been done so well. She looks very calm and confident up there. Gainer off the end of the beam, slight step forward, but that was a great set. We'll be seeing a good score for that routine.
Nicely done by Shannon Farrell and the Seawolves. Like BYU, early fall. They managed to avoid any other major mistakes, and they can drop the 8.875. Cosmo's waving to the kids. We're not going anywhere yet because we're getting set for the viral Barbie Girl routine from Rebecca Bean Ripley. Just a few moments away in her anchor spot on floor, and it has been just a dynamite floor rotation for BYU to this point. Just waiting on the score for Elise Rollins.
We did have another judges conference there. The judges had to come together to discuss the routine and what deductions they're taking.
You can see Rebecca Ripley trying to stay loose, enjoying the music that's currently playing in the Marriott Center. She will be the final scoring competitor of this meet. I just saw a 9.85 flashed on the scoreboard for Elise Rollins. We'll see if it is indeed confirmed as a 9.85 or it's now a 9.825. So BYU can drop the 9.8 from Heidi School. They're already, regardless of what happens here in this Barbie Girl routine, at a 49.275.
Yeah, not bad at all. It's a great comeback. after a trickier rotation.
A 9-9 here from Rebecca Ripley would give BYU their highest score of the season in any event.
And she's definitely capable of it.
Oh!
So we will probably not see the 9-9, unfortunately, because of the out of bounds. That is an automatic 1/10 off for each foot. In addition to, there will be a deduction for being slightly out of control on the landing. Beautiful leaps and jumps, though. That's probably one of my favorite parts of the routine. The jumps to the boing, boing, boing. And then there's a little bubble part that I just think Brogan was genius, Coach Brogan, when she choreographed this routine. Prepping for her final pass of the evening. Round off backhand spring, double pike. Keeps it up. Again, we're gonna see a slight deduction for the low landing. The chest was quite low. Not going to be Rebecca's best score, however, I don't know if you can hear the excitement at home that we're hearing from the girls, all excited about the Barbie routine.
They love it. They love the Barbie theme. Exhibition routine on beam for Alaska. BYU will also have an exhibition routine on the floor. It'll be Mina Margraf. And then this meet will be officially complete. Given the mistakes from Ripley and her routine, BYU is going to sit on that 49.275. And how about that aerial?
What a beauty. That is such a difficult pass to do, the handstand into the layout. Anytime you see two layouts connected in a row, you can know that is a hard pass.
A couple of 9-7s to close out on the beam for Alaska. With Barahona and Farrell.
Round off back 1.5. Little college salute there to finish off the routine.
Mikkel, right now BYU to 196.350.
I mean, I think we were all hoping for a little bit more coming out of this final home meet, but still a very respectable score. We've just been really spoiled the past several years, and our expectations are really high for this team.
If BYU had consistently scored in the 196 area and had been able to avoid the 194 setback and then just a really slow start to the season, then they are in the top 28. But it just seemed like it took a little while for them to get going.
It did. We had a really young team as far as experience goes, and it just took them a little bit. Now the girls that had never competed on specific events are looking fantastic, but it just took us a little while to get there.
Watching Mina Margraf, the exhibition routine on the floor for BYU. Rebecca Ripley with a 9.650, had a big step out of bounds on that opening pass. Again, had to wait a long time, Mikkel. A lot of kids, you wonder if she's feeling extra nerves because she knows that the kids are all excited to see her Barbie girl routine. She's got some pent up energy in there, and it just...
It is tricky. You want to be hyped, but you can't be too hyped. You have to have that perfect balance, and sometimes that's hard to achieve.
Alaska with a solid beam rotation will finish with a 190.075. Margraf, another pass.
Front Rudy, beautiful landing, chest nice and high. I imagine we'll be seeing a lot more of Mina in the lineup next year, which is why these exhibition routines are so important.
Well done, Mina Margraf. An exhibition routine on the floor. We don't see those scores pop up on the screen and don't talk about them, but the judges will still give them a score, and it's a base for them to build off as they work through practice.
The judges do still give them the score, and it's so important because sometimes you'll have someone exhibition just because you don't know, is this connection going to count? Does this qualify as this requirement? And so sometimes you'll have someone exhibition and you'll find out that, oh no, that doesn't. I'm so glad that wasn't in our lineup today. So it's a good way to test out different things.
BYU finishes out their final home meet of the season with a 196.350 to Alaska's 190.075. We should add this as the final note, Mikkel. BYU with 2 away meets at Ohio State and at Arizona. You can count more away meets than you can home meets for a national qualifying score.
You can count more away, you can count as many away meets as you want, and they also have the MRGC conferences coming up. So we still have lots of room to make those improvements and hit the sets, but it just has to be done at this point.
So let's see if BYU can stand up to that challenge and put together their biggest scores in their biggest away meets of the season as we come down the stretch. For now, it's been our pleasure to bring you women's gymnastics from Provo. Another season for us in the books. It's kind of sad it goes so fast. But it's always a pleasure, Mikkel. Thanks for hanging out once again.
I've loved it. Can't wait to do it again next season.
Final score once again from this dual meet on a Wednesday afternoon in front of Kids Day at the Marriott Center. BYU 196.350, Alaska with a 190.075. The Seawolves headed to Logan, Utah for a dual meet with Utah State on Friday. BYU takes on the Ohio State Buckeyes on the road, also on the road in Columbus. For Mikkel Merkley and every member of our outstanding production crew, I'm Spencer Linton saying goodbye from Provo. It's another Cougar winner.
This week, I'll be heading to Texas.